Today's presentation will be about the evolution of management theory and practice in the parks, recreation, leisure, and sports fields of work. The term manager is actually an American invention dating back to the early years of the 20th century. So it actually came from America. In this presentation, we're going to cover some things about management development, including the Industrial Revolution, social reform movement, transfer of technology, and then we'll go on to talk about management history, which was going to include scientific management, human relations management, management science, human resources management, and then contemporary management. So as we look at management overall, we're going to think about the evolution of social ideas within management. So you've got the rise of modern management, where we had the development of complex organizations emerging during the Industrial Revolution, so they could pump out more things of whatever they were looking at. And then we look at the industrial model of organization, which was very mechanical in nature, and it really emphasized the need for authority and coordination, again, to make sure that the structure and the output was streamlined. So within the industrial area, we have the emergence of a capitalistic society, which is capitalism. And the thing with this is it gave individuals hope to improve their lives and move up the social scales. It provided individuals with opportunity to be inventive and try new things. So before that, individuals were tied to the land. They had few prospects of moving on from where they were born, just because of a lack of opportunity and a lack of scalability up the ladder. So there are also some effects that the industrial era had on management. So the organizations were much larger and much more complex. There was a need for individuals with unique skills to manage such large and demanding organizations. So it was a new skill set that was being developed or needed to be developed. And the body of knowledge developed to assist managers in doing these skills. So it helped with their knowledge, their skills, and abilities. So the industrial society, industrialization, also created some social reforms that were needed to look at things like urbanization, immigration, class distinctions, and the major boom and bust cycles of that era. So as these issues became more apparent, there are also some strategies for resolving them. Within this time frame, we looked at settlement housing, parks, cleaner streets, better housing overall, regulations on working conditions, so suppression and elimination of prostitution, prohibition and elimination of alcohol, new transportation systems and public transportations, playgrounds, and then public baths and swimming pools. This is also when our current schedule for work, sleep, and other things kind of evolved into what you see here is 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, and then 8 hours for leisure. So let's look at technology transfer during industrialization. So we had a lot of communication between European communities and the Americas related to managing business and industry. And this even extended into social aspects as well. So sharing of information, processes, that kind of stuff. Industrialization also created some challenges, so that it required some new social innovations to overcome some of these challenges. This was a time of great social reform in places like Germany and England. And then municipalization of basic services. So we're looking at the communities taking on water, electric, sewage, instead of those being private industries. And you can even see that today in a lot of places where the city is in charge or manages the water for the constituents in the area. And then we look at public open spaces, and this is where green spaces start to become more popular. So when we look at a little bit more specifically what the technologies transfer between European countries and the Americas, it occurred because of the people going over there to get educated in the best universities coming back to the United States. So this happened in Germany and England as well. Information and technology transfer also happened with the great immigration population boom of the late 1800s and early 1900s, and also by Americans who toured European communities for recreational or business purposes. And so the people doing that, they observed, recorded, and tried to replicate different innovations from modern European industrial societies in the Americas. So, a specific example with that within our profession is the systematic play under leadership of adults without robbing them of the freedom. So, it's letting them play and have that freedom, but also having some supervision over them, came from European ideals. And then we move on to management theory in the modern age. So, modern management techniques from the early 20th century that helped really influence the development of management theory. And we're going to talk about these a little bit more depth, but they are a bureaucratic form of organization, scientific management, human relations management, management science, human resources management, and contemporary management. The bureaucratic form of organization by Max Weber. This theory included 5 characteristics of bureaucracies, which is the division of work, centralized authority, specific rules, rational personnel policies, and keeping good records. And what this really came out with was a rational form of organization enabling standardization and the separation of management from policy making. Next, we have scientific management theory by Frederick Taylor. So this looked at concepts like worker efficiency, incentive plans, work techniques, task specialization, and control of standards. The management implications were we focused more attention on the use of standards. We included incentive systems to increase production. We started with task specialization, which increased production. And then we look at employee-employer cooperation. And then we move on to human relations management by Elton Mayo. These included concepts of Hawthorne studies, the human factor, employee satisfaction, group dynamics, and job supervision. So the management implications with this theory is it raised awareness of importance of human variables in management. So people are different, and you got to understand it and deal with that. It linked employee satisfaction and performance. So the more satisfied somebody is, the better they perform. And then looked at managers creating satisfactory interpersonal relationships with employers and other managers. Next, we'll move on to management science or operations research. So the concepts included in here were first applied in England during World War II. They looked at decision analysis, forecasting, networking models, probability, simulations, and resource allocation. So this created a framework for objective decision making. They also included problem structuring methods, discipline of using mathematics in management decision making, so using a little bit more statistics, and the focus on application of analytical methods. So we're getting a little bit more specific with this management model. Human resources management. The concepts included here include human capital, behavioral sciences, decision making that impacts people, individual and or organizational performance, and employee rewards. The implications here include promoting involvement of human resources, enabling some self-direction and self-control. It allows for a greater flexibility with creativity in pursuing organizational goals, so not so rigid. And then it merges human resources with behavioral sciences. Then we move on to contemporary management. So the concepts included here are quality and excellence, organizational changes, benchmarking, strategic planning, information technology. There are going to be learning organizations and strength building. The implications here really are a focus on improving organizational capabilities in a rapidly changing, continuously changing environment. So how can we best manage the continuously changing environment? We want to pursue excellence, which requires these new management strategies in this new environment. All of this leads us into a new paradigm for managing into the 21st century. So we need to look at releasing work capacity of employees, improving the quality of the workplace, restructuring organizations to be less bureaucratic, a stronger connection with our constituents, promoting more of an entrepreneurial and creative behavior, and encouraging productivity by promoting action. I really like this quote from Tom Peters, which is his formula for success is under promise and over deliver. I think that's pretty relevant. Some contemporary management concepts include an emphasis on quality and excellence, increased accountability through benchmarking, measuring, and evaluation, a focus on organizational change management, the application of information technology to improve processes, creation of organizations built around a culture of learning, strategic management, and strength building as a focus for managers and organizations. Within the parks and recreation field, we had some issues related to the industrial era that we had to help with. This included urbanization, social economic stratification, ethnic and racial divisions, factory conditions, immigration, and the redefinition of daily life. So our innovations and programs to kind of help with these issues included settlement houses, parks and open spaces, new playgrounds, outdoor gymnasiums, rec centers, field houses, community and recreation centers. We looked at cleaner streets, better housing, new transportation systems, and then we looked at improved and clean water and sanitation systems. There were some significant changes in the era of the Depression and the wars years from 1930 to 1950 as it relates to management of recreation, parks, and leisure services. So there's a large infusion of federal funds for programs like the WPA and the Civilian Conservation Corps. So this included structural reform and reorganizations in parks and recreation. So let's look at the 4 basic rules for managers. This is a provided overview of legislative mandates empowering public park and recreation organizations. So we look at plan work intelligently, delegate authority wisely, follow up on results, and be prepared for emergencies. In 1964, a very influential text came out called the Administration of Public Recreation. So in here, we looked at the introduction of recreation administration. And in there, one quote that I really liked was, "Recreation and Parks Administration must be concerned with this problem in mind. How can goals be reached with minimum effort and maximum efficiency?" If we look a little bit more in depth, management concepts, organization of parks and recreation systems, structuring organizations through the establishment of integrated organization structure in parks and recreation, identification of unity of command, development of adequate span of control, so not too big or too little of span of control, establishment of compatible relationships and delegation of authority and responsibility, so making sure the right people are reporting to the right folks, and then use of staff units for research and specialization. Next, we'll enter the 1980s to 1990s, a period of reorganization and growth for parks and recreation. So we moved into this new era with emphasis on providing high quality, participant-focused recreation, parks, and leisure services. We looked at a lot more outsourcing, the expanded use of technology. We did a lot more benchmarking, allowed for innovation and creative flexibilities, a lot more networking, and really rethinking managerial leadership strategies. So if we look at management again, our focus became outsourcing, the expanded use of technology, benchmarking and innovation, networking, and rethinking leadership strategies. With this increased interest in changing some of these strategies and these management applications, the American Academy of Park and Recreation Administration was established in 1980. So their organization was dedicated to the following goals: promote understanding of parks and recreation goals and methods to increase knowledge through encouraging its gathering, organization, and dissemination, and to unify and strengthen our purposes, all toward improving the quality of life in America. So this is moving forward with that history. In 1989, the American Academy for Park and Recreation Administration developed an accreditation procedure for accrediting parks and recreation agencies, and it became the National Commission on Accreditation for Park and Recreation Agencies now known as CAPRA, and that's still current today. So CAPRA, currently operating in conjunction with the National Recreation and Park Association, or NRPA, consists of a board of 12 individuals appointed by the NRPA Board of Trustees, AAPRA Board of Directors, the AALR, the American Association for Leisure and Recreation, the International City-County Management Association, Council on Executive Directors, and the National Association of County and Park and Recreation Officials. CAPRA includes 10 categories of standards and over 150 individual items. 35 of those are considered basic standards. Agencies seeking accreditation, CAPRA accreditation, must be 100% within those basic standards and have an 85% compliance rate with the remaining standards. Here you can see the 10 basic categories within the CAPRA standards. We won't read over them individually, but you can see where they have different categories and how they line up. A textbook that came out in 1980, Financing, Managing, and Marketing Recreation and Park Resources, really altered the practice of the profession. So it focused on financing and marketing of parks and recreation services and resources. And it redirected the work of park and recreation professionals into these specific areas. It became the authoritative source that effectively integrated examples of professional practice with emerging management and marketing strategies. In 1984, another textbook came out called Organizing Leisure and Human Services, and it focused on reorganization of strategies to plan for future design and management of recreation and human services as an agency. It provided new alternatives for the future that is ever so changing, as we remember, and it recognizing a goal of recreation, parks, and leisure services to develop the human potential and make all our lives better. So looking at social good. So let's look at new challenges into the 21st century from the year 2000 to present. So we have some significant changes in leisure patterns. So we have an increase of place-bound, community-focused experiences. And then we have heightened security procedures for travel, events, and other venues. Some other things to consider is the need to innovate and respond to changes as we move into the future. Our new financial landscape, which is doing more with less resources, building collaborative partnerships, and continued emphasis on marketing strategies to get information out. The driving forces of recreation, park, and leisure service managers will be performance-based management, outcome assessments, benefits-based program will continue. There will be increased emphasis on accountability, and really linking of inputs to outputs or inputs to benefits. So to summarize, the rise of management follows the development of complex organizations during the industrial era. So the industrial model of management included industrial society created need for new management strategies and social reforms. Social innovations in management and recreation, parks, and leisure service professions happened at about this time. There was a lot of technology transfer of ideas between Europe and the Americas. We also reviewed 5 different approaches for parks, recreation, leisure service management. They include scientific management, human relations management, management science, human resources, and contemporary management. That concludes our presentation on the evolution of management theory and practice.